Welcome to Ravens Across the Pond, your place for everything Baltimore Ravens. From a fresh, European perspective. Plenty of laughs, plenty of piss-taking, and of course, questionable insights. Sit back, relax, grab a beer, and enjoy the show.
Welcome back, Ravens flock, to another episode of Ravens Across the Pond. And a very, very special episode for us today. The first time that we have had a former Raven on. Not only is this guy a former Raven, a long career in the NFL with the Vikings, Ravens, Dolphins, Cardinals, Bears, a Super Bowl champion, played with the likes of Ray Lewis, Jonathan Ogden, Trent Dilfer, Jamal Lewis. Femi, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Looking forward to connecting with you.
No problem.
Yeah, so obviously we understand that we are pushed for time. We really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to join us. I think that the first place to kind of start for us was coming out of San Diego State as a UDFA and then kind of landing with the Vikings. Obviously, your journey across the pond to the London Monarchs and then to the Ravens. How much of that journey did that shape the rest of your career in the NFL?
Yeah, if I didn't play for the London Monarchs, I don't think I would have probably made it. You know, as you noted, I went to college at San Diego State. I was a high school running back, and then I was a college tight end, and then I was moved to running back at the NFL level. And, you know, I could play tight end, I could play in the slot, I could play running back, I could play fullback, so I could play special teams. And when you're a jack of all trades and a master of none, the line between success and failure is very thin because you've got to learn to do a number of different things. And you have to be able to do them all, because without that aggregate value, I'm probably not worth keeping around necessarily. So when I got cut from the Vikings, I got re-signed to a futures contract. And part of that agreement, and I volunteered, was to go to play in NFL Europe for the London Monarchs because I knew I'd get a chance to play and build confidence. Yeah. So I didn't play special teams in college. I was a starter. You know, I was a person who was very involved in the offense. So I needed the NFL, you know, my first training camp and then my subsequent time in NFL Europe to get good at special teams. You know, things move fast. You got to keep your head on a swivel. And then also just getting comfortable, you know, with the different roles and self-confidence. You know, I always tell people that as a professional athlete, you have to be delusionally confident in your ability, because if you don't believe in yourself, no one else will. So NFL Europe was, you know, extremely important to my success. And I loved living in Crystal Palace and being in London. And as I told you guys, I have a lot of family that's from the UK and technically from Dublin, Ireland. My mom's family comes from Dublin. Westmeath to be exact. So I've been to, you know, Ireland, I've been to Scotland, I've been to Wales, I've obviously been to England numerous times. So yeah, the UK is awesome. I love the UK. Anytime I can come and visit, I'd love to. But yeah, that's kind of the brief synopsis on how I got sticky in the league. A lot of it was because of Europe and being a London Monarch.
I was just wondering, for a young guy from the States, did you have any culture shocks coming over to the UK and adjusting to life over here?
Not really. You know, my dad is from Lagos, Nigeria, you know, so I lived in Lagos for a few years as a kid. You want to talk about culture shock? You know what I mean? Like, to have a white mother with strawberry blonde hair and blue eyes, then you have two little light brown kids like my brother and I in Nigeria, you know, in the late 70s. Now that is culture shock, and I remember it pretty well. So I was already seasoned at, you know, being in different places and, you know, the idiosyncratic things that come with traveling. I love the UK. I mean, I could have ended up in Spain or Germany, which probably would have been a lot more difficult than being in London. So plus I was there with my teammates. You know, there was 50 of us, 55 of us. You know, we traveled in a pack. So I thought London was great. Obviously, it reminded me of other large cities that I'd been to, like, New York and, growing up in California. I grew up in the Bay Area, so, San Francisco. And then obviously I went to San Diego State. My brother, who played a decade, played for the Ravens, also has a Super Bowl ring. He went to UCLA. So being in LA, I think as a kid, I was pretty seasoned, so when I got to London, I hit the ground running and, found my way around the pubs pretty easily too, gentlemen. A lot of
Well played.
extracurricular activities, if you know what I'm saying. If you feel me, if you know what
Yeah.
yeah, it was fun. It was fun.
Absolutely. If you had one night out, would you choose a London pub or an American bar scene?
You know what? I don't remember much in regard to like the details of the names of stuff. You know what I mean? I just and I don't think I was very sober either. You know what I'm saying? So and it was a long time ago, right? I mean, we're talking so long ago. This is decades ago now at this point. But I had a blast. I'm sure a lot of the places that I went to, well, maybe they're still there, who knows? But I'm sure they probably have remodeled, redone, or things like that. But yeah, specificity on details of that stuff is a bit blurry at this point.
Femi, obviously, one of the main reason we got you on the show is earlier on this year. It was 25 years since the Ravens won their first Super Bowl, and you being a member of that team. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Femi. From doing my research, up until you got an injury that season, you were leading the Ravens in receptions. Obviously, a bit of a third down specialist for the Ravens. Just how hard was it for you to get injured at that point in the season? And how far into that season did you as a player and obviously the rest of the organization realize that we're onto something special here?
Yeah, so I played for Brian in Minnesota. I was on that 1998 team that went 15-1. And so when Brian came over to the Ravens, I and like 6 other players came with him. So the 1999 team is really when the Play Like a Raven kind of moniker was born. We finished 8-8 that year, but we started out 2-6. So we went on a nice run. And I believe that the Titans went to the Super Bowl that year. I think that's the year that they lost to the Rams. We beat their ass. Like you can look at the scores. Like we beat them pretty good. We knew we were onto something. So in 2000, I was technically the starting fullback. And as you noted, I was the third down specialist. I was a special teamer, but I got hurt. I think it was against the Redskins, now the Commanders. And it was probably like week 7 or 8, I think. And as you noted, I was having a really, really good season. And so I got hurt in that game, very freak thing that happened. And then I came back a month later against the Titans. And funny enough, an injury that's never happened to me before happens twice in 2 games that I thought, like the 2 games that I got to play in back-to-back games, the same thing happened. Someone fell on my heel. And the first time it just strained the ligaments. The second time it tore the ligaments. So I had to have season-ending surgery. I think that was like I had the surgery in January. So I think I got to like week 12 or 13 in a 16-game schedule. So yeah, that was not fun. And I had to watch from the sideline. Obviously I came back and recovered and ended up playing. But yeah, it was not fun to observe. But I'm happy we won. Obviously I made my contributions along the way. So I had to just take a little pride and solace in the fact that I was able to be a contributor. And to this day, I live back in Baltimore. Now I've been back here since 2014 full time. I did my MBA at Johns Hopkins University. Johns Hopkins, is here in Baltimore City. So my kids were born and raised here. So I still do a ton of stuff. And obviously I'm doing a bunch of stuff in media still. I do I work for 105.7 The Fan here in Baltimore, local, sports talk radio. I'm on every Monday through Friday from 2 to 6. I've been doing freelance media now, along with being an entrepreneur for, over a decade at this point. So yeah, all that is because I was a Raven and, got to contribute to that 2000 Super Bowl team.
Dickie?
Sounds good. I was just wondering, obviously within that locker room, did you have anyone that you were particularly close with, or people that you'd hang out with more than any of the others?
Well, Chris Redman, who was our backup quarterback and was my roommate, so he and I hung out a lot. Brandon Stokely, the receiver, would be at our house quite a bit. Trent Dilfer, the quarterback, he and I are both from Santa Cruz, California. So Trent and I went to rival high school. So I'd known Trent for a really long time. So, Trent, Chris, Brandon, and I would play cards quite a bit. Priest Holmes and Jamal and I were very close because being running backs, we'd have running back night I think we did it every Wednesday. I believe it was at Jamal's house that we did it. So the running backs as a group were pretty tight. Chuck Evans, Sam Gash, those guys were technically fullbacks as well. Yeah, there's definitely other guys too, you know what I mean? But I would say that was kind of the crew. And also what's interesting enough in 1999, Goose had a radio show that he did at a bar called The Barn. And in 1999, as I said, we started out rough, but we finished strong. And when I first got to Baltimore, Goose invited me to come to these, to this place and help him, be a guest on his radio show. There was nobody in there when the season started, but by the end of the 99 season, that place was rocking and rolling, and, we were having a blast. So I was pretty close with Goose as well. Even all the way up to his death, we would do stuff here locally for nonprofits and different things in the community. So yeah, Goose is another guy. That whole group was pretty tight knit. Ed Mulitalo, the offensive line, Jonathan, Mike Flynn. Yeah, a lot of us, I think a lot of the reason why we were so good is that we were a pretty tight knit group.
Just following on from that, so you mentioned you were close with Dilfer, played cards with Dilfer. Do you think that relationship sort of gave you a leg up on the field? Obviously you had your physical ability. Do you think the personal relationship meant Dilfer would lean on you more in critical moments when a play needed to be made?
Not necessarily, because Tony Banks and I were very good friends as well. Tony was another guy, and he started the season as the starter. And remember that when Tony got replaced by Trent, like I kind of got hurt somewhere in that same time period. So although Trent and I were close, like when you're in there, like the guys that are in there, like you trust them to make plays. You know what I mean? I definitely think that the off-field relationships just bolster the on-field trust. You know what I mean? But I would say everybody, we trusted each other across the board. If you're out there playing, you're trusted to execute. So I don't think it got me any preferential treatment necessarily, but it was, it made things easy to communicate when you know someone and you've known someone a really long time.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I've always wanted to know, and I do dream of one day meeting this guy and just listening to him talk. And one of probably the biggest character in Ravens history, Ray Lewis, was part of that Super Bowl winning team. Obviously, went on to win another Super Bowl in the 2012 season when they won in New Orleans. Just how big of a character was Ray Lewis in that, not just in that dressing room, but within the organization? And what was he like off the field? Was he as intense off the field as he was on the field?
No, he's just a normal guy. You know what I mean? Like, fun to be around. He'd have some gatherings at his house. Actually, I would say that like Ray's a funny guy. You know what I mean? Like he would like to have fun. Him and Shannon and Goose, they kind of all had their little fun together. Extremely playful and supportive. Like the persona that people see him as, like on the field, I would say is just a part. We're not monolithic in who we are, right? Like we're all, there's different mix of character traits. And so like the version that you guys see is just a sliver of like who he really is. And I think that probably goes for all athletes that are very visible. But you can't live with that kind of intensity all the time. And it's impossible, right? So The version you get is the game day version. The locker room version is a lot more dynamic and capable of the softer things and having more dexterity in engagement with people. And so, yeah, what you guys would see is a sliver, but there's a lot more to Ray and how dynamic he was. But great guy, great leader. We know the resume, one of the best, middle linebackers to ever do it. And obviously the 2000 Ravens, the best defense in history. Yes, the best. The Bears were second. The Bears were number 2. The Ravens were number 1.
Yeah, that was going to be a question of mine towards the end of the show, the 85 Bears or the 2000 Ravens, but you've just answered that.
Well, the data, I'm biased, but the data bears it out too. If you go look at the data side by side, the season-long data and the postseason data, like all of it in aggregate. But I love the 85 Bears. I mean, like I said, I was born in Chicago originally. My mom's from Chicago, so the Bears were my first love as a team. So I remember that when the Bears won the Super Bowl, in 85. I remember when they lost to the Dolphins that night in Miami as well. And I remember the Super Bowl shuffle. I remember all that. Not to belabor the point. Yeah.
We had an event in April for the first round of the draft in the Hippodrome Casino in Leicester Square. And one of the guests that we managed to secure was Sean Gale, obviously part of a successful Chicago Bears team. It was fascinating to obviously talk and listen to him. Just moving on to kind of the Ravens of recent times. And one question that I have wanted to ask is, you work under Coach Billick. You've been around the Ravens organization for an awfully long time. Obviously, you moved back to Baltimore in 2014. You've covered the Ravens for a long time during your media career. When you look at Coach Billick, Coach Harbaugh, and you look at the teams that both coaches had, do you think that in the duration that John Harbaugh was in charge of the Ravens, that he underachieved? And when I say that, I mean in regards to bringing the Lombardi home. And do you think Coach Billick would have brought more Super Bowls home in that same time period?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to make the comparison necessarily. I mean, they both won Super Bowls. They both did it relatively quickly. But I would say in the Lamar Jackson era, to have 2 number 1 seeds and no Super Bowl appearances, I would say that's underachieving. Obviously, we know about the blown fourth quarter leads. We know about abandoning the run versus Kansas City and just the lack of energy against the Titans in 2019. John is going to be in the Ring of Honor. He might even end up being a Hall of Famer when it's all said and done. And he's exactly what the New York Giants need. But in regard to Jesse Minter, he is the evolution of where coaches are going. He's a savant and an expert on one side of the ball. We're known for our defensive culture here in Baltimore. He's going to reestablish that, in my opinion. You need only look at what he did with the Chargers and how quickly he made them a number 1 defense and a top 10 defense in numerous categories. And he won a national championship at University of Michigan, and he was a defensive assistant here in Baltimore. So he has familiarity with this organization and what's expected here. So I think he's the perfect hire. I think his communication style is next level. He understands how to disarm people and engage, and he understands that communication and relationship building is about curiosity. Like, you can't learn about somebody unless you're curious about them. And that means like genuinely listening, right? Like, when you talk to somebody, like, hearing is one thing, like you hear their words, but really like digesting what they're saying, that's really trying to understand the individual. And I think that I do a ton of keynote speaking. I do a ton of motivational speaking, and I have a methodology called the 4 C's. And Jesse doesn't know it, but he's doing it already. And the first part of that is curiosity. The second part is collaboration. The third part is connection, and the fourth part is conflict. The problem that we have today is most people lead with conflict. They think that's the right way you start something, by challenging somebody. How are you going to lead with conflict if you don't even know who you're dealing with? You don't know anything about them, and what are you working on, right? So I think Jesse understands that conflict can only come after you kind of check the curiosity, connection, and collaboration boxes. And this is an agnostic approach. Like, this is with in your personal life, this is at work, like anybody that you deal with, that you're going to deal with frequency. If you lead with curiosity, you're going to learn a whole lot about them, and then you'll naturally find things to connect and collaborate on. And then when you have a debate or an argument, or you want to make a work product better, when you have that conflict, it's going to be iron sharpening iron. It's not going to be a personal attack. It's not going to come across as like inappropriate. I think a lot of times, especially in the past, when like the macho fighting conflict side of things, people thought that was a good way to do business. It's not. And Jesse knows that. He has a really good way of disarming people and getting to the root of a problem in a direct manner, and then moving through it and flushing it and moving on. And if you listen to Marlon and Kyle Hamilton and Lamar and Zay and Bate and all these different guys talk, and Mark Andrews and all these veterans talk about Jesse Minter, the common thread is that he's knowledgeable. He doesn't let things linger, and he gets right to the heart of the problem immediately in a very disarming and calm way. It could be conflict, but conflict is what you need to kind of, move and pivot to the next thing that's going to solve the problem. So I think Jesse Minter is the right coach at the right time. And look, just because he's a new coach, my expectations are the same. Super Bowl. That's always the Super Bowl here. It's not an AFC championship game. It's not an AFC North title. It's Super Bowl. And he's the right guy to do it. And Declan Doyle, and Anthony Weaver, like I think we got a very talented group of coaches, and all I got to do, I've been at practice 6 times since camp started. I've listened to the players, I've interacted with the front office, I've interacted with the people that actually make the whole thing work, from PR to marketing, and everybody is delighted with what Jesse has brought. That's not anything against John. It's just, it was time.
Fair. I just wondered, so you've talked about change in kind of personnel there, but obviously the overarching goal from the Billick days to now is win a Super Bowl every season. In what ways has the NFL changed from when you were playing to the modern day? Would you say what are some of the biggest changes?
Yeah, the rules for sure. I mean, player safety is first. The way we practice now is so much better. The changing of back-to-back padded practices, the kind of drills that you could do, the amount of time that you're allowed to be on the field, mandatory versus optional camps and off-season workouts, and giving players time and space to raise their families and be with their families, and the science, the nutrition and fitness protocols, the early detection stuff with brain injury, all of it. It's just so much better. It's so much safer. And offenses are way more dynamic. Athletes are way more dynamic, bigger, faster, stronger, smarter, better prepared. Younger athletes contributing much faster. They're coming in ready to play now. There's no rules in regard to who can get on the field. If you earn it, it's yours. I love it. I love the evolution of it. I think it's the right way to do business. It's the right way to prepare players. It's the right way to give and create competition. So in so many ways, it's better. You're never going to look. I have a 21-year-old and a 20-year-old and a 13-year-old. I'm around young people all the time. My ego is not going to let me get on here and lie to you and be like, oh, the way that we did it back in the day was better. We were tougher. We were smarter. No, we weren't. No, we were not. It's always evolution. And I always want the next generation to build on top of us and do it better. And when they do it better, I'm going to say they do it better. Am I a big fan of some of the lack of communication and in real life, like skills? No, I'm not necessarily a fan of that, but the mathematics, the science, the skill sets, the things that kids can do with a laptop and a phone, the things they can build and create, and this goes beyond, and I'm bringing up a larger thing now because this oozes into everything. This oozes into the NFL. This oozes into major sports. Like the preparation and expectation and the science and technology and the information has allowed this game to be more dynamic. There's very few teams that use a fullback. Tight ends are receivers and blockers. You have quarterbacks like Lamar. Lamar changed the whole game from an archetype and prototype. You have little kids. They may not be as athletic as Lamar, but his game is so approachable because it's fun. Off-platform throws, twisting, spinning with flag football. They go out there, they emulate him. Girls and boys wearing number 8. There's just so many things that are so much better about this product in this game. I'm not going to sit here and glorify violence and glorify the stupidity of the previous game, the hits. If you're in it for the hits, you're watching the wrong sport. Go watch rugby. You can go do that. If you want to see people get hit with no pads on and get knocked out, like, this game is the most dynamic game in the world for a reason. And by the way, I love soccer. Soccer was my first sport. I come from a group of Nigerians. You know how how soccer is globally. So I have a lot of respect for other athletes as well. But when it comes to the NFL itself and what's required to be an NFL player, it's the hardest sport in the world to play, no doubt about it. The requirement for it, the communication, like the playbook. We're talking playbooks that are 300 pages. You know what I mean? Like, you have to have a degree in this sport to play it. You know what I mean? And I love it. I love it. And I love other sports too. I love MMA. I love, don't let me get on the UFC and Dana White right now, but like the product that he's putting, I'm not a fan of, but I love the athletes, and I love the athletes that can't, like, it's become very commercial lately. You know what I mean? But we're not here to talk about that, but I love MMA. I love international soccer. I love the NBA. I love the Olympics. You know what I mean? Like, I love track. My son's a track athlete and plays football. So I just love sports in general, but the hardest sport on the planet, in my opinion, is the NFL. It's football, American football. And that doesn't necessarily make it the best. I understand that soccer and football, as you guys call it, is the most popular global sport. I totally get that. But for me, growing up in the US and what I do, I'm biased. You guys already know. So yeah, I love the NFL product. I love the evolution of the sport.
Yeah, I'm with you on the evolution, and it's fascinating to see the evolution of sport. And I believe that analytics in most sports are a good thing. Just to change sports, one other sport that I'm extremely passionate about, baseball. Analytics for me in baseball is just ruined the game. Like, you look at some players now in the big leagues, in the batting 230. You think if that was 10, 15 years ago, you're back down on the farm.
I think launch angle and these power pitchers, there's so many guys that throw in the high 90s now, and small ball and bunting and base stealing has been devalued. And I agree with you. And baseball was my first sport, actually. Like, I did play soccer as a little kid, but like my first organized sport was baseball. I played college baseball too. So I love baseball. I'm a Giants fan growing up in Northern California. Obviously, I cheer for the Orioles being in Baltimore, and I have to talk about the Orioles every day. So I watch every Orioles game. But I know this isn't a baseball podcast, but I love that you're talking analytics, Thomas. And yeah, analytics are great, but let's not become slaves to analytics. And I'm a data science guy, but I also understand that data science and analytics can tell a story, but it doesn't have to own the story and dominate it, right? I'd love to see different changes in baseball, but yeah, I see someone's Dawkins in the running. Oh, I see someone asking about the center position with the injury. You mind talking about that real quick?
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, so my dark horse has been Javon Gwynn this whole time. Javon Gwynn was brought here by Coach Ledford for a reason. He came over from the Atlanta Falcons. I'd been talking prior to the signing of Posick that I thought him and Pinter would battle it out. And I love the athleticism that Javon Gwynn brings. And if you guys got a chance to see the PFF scores and just the video, I don't know if you guys got a chance to see like the all 22 from behind, but Javon Gwynn was in destruction mode. I mean, this dude graded, I think he might have been the highest graded center in week 1 across the whole NFL. Definitely one of the highest grades in the league in PFF. And he, from pass protection to running the ball and run blocking, off the chart. So he's still my dark horse to be the starter. Unfortunately, I don't know if you guys heard. I don't know if they said if Pinter tore his ACL or not. I haven't heard that, but they think he did tear his ACL. And Posick is coming off Achilles surgery. Dawkins at Penn State obviously played with Venga at Penn State. He was kind of a kid that I thought, his dad played in the NBA. He was obviously really, really well accomplished, undrafted. He's gonna have to step up. I don't know what's gonna happen with Corey Bullock, I believe. I don't know what's gonna happen in regard to like who gets more reps, but I guess we'll see. But I think it's Javon Gwynn's opportunity. I think he's gonna seize it, and this just makes it a little bit more clear.
I think it's always it must be a real confidence boost for a player if your kind of position coach gets a new job and you get the opportunity to follow them over.
I benefited from that too, right? When I came over with Brian from the Vikings, right? So I knew, knowing the offense and kind of knowing what's required, definitely that's an advantage. It gives you an advantage in opportunity. You know what I mean? For sure. I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry.
Femi, just one last question before we wrap up, because I know we're pushed for time. Lamar Jackson, the greatest dual threat quarterback to ever play the game, future Hall of Famer. In your opinion, does the Lamar Jackson extension get done at the end of this year, or the one place where I could, if the Ravens decided to move on from him after the season or an extension didn't get done, do you see him going back down to Florida? Because we know there is a bit of an issue with a contract extension down there with Baker and Tampa.
Look, the Dolphins signed their quarterback in Malik Willis, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Lamar's never said that he wants to play for the Dolphins. It doesn't mean he hasn't thought about it, but I think Lamar's going to retire a Raven. I think the contract will get done in March of 2027 in the offseason. There's a lot of change around Lamar. Lamar's an introvert naturally. He's pretty low key. And so, he's made quite a bit of money. I don't think he's worried about his money. Lamar's a unique character. You know what I mean? A lot of people underestimate his intelligence because he's an introvert, but do that at your own peril. I think Lamar is taking in all the change. I think he's really enjoying all the change. He's been super engaged. He's been extremely transparent about everything other than the contract. And he's been available. And he's been available every time there's been a new coordinator, by the way. This idea that don't listen to all the bullshit that people talk, especially some of these local media folks. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't verify half the things that they say. But I anticipate that he will sign a 4-year extension because he'll still have 1 year left on his deal for 2027. He'll be the highest paid quarterback in NFL history. That deal will be worth north of $300 million. He'll get over $100 million signing bonus, and his average annual salary will be over $70 million a year. And he'll do it with the Ravens, and hopefully it'll be after a Super Bowl win. And I think the only hesitation for Lamar is just making sure that all this new stuff, think about it. He played for John for his whole career. Think about all the players that have come on since he's been here. That's a lot of change. You can give the guy a little time to say, hey, let me just make sure this is everything that I think it is. And so far, it looks like it's going to be everything that he thinks that it is. Because if you were in a job that you'd been in for almost a decade and there was a lot of change around you and your contract is almost up, you might say, you know what? I got a great deal right now. I can finish the deal out and see where we are as an organization and then make my decision. And everything checks out, then, hey, I'll re-up and I'll retire as a Raven potentially. So that's the only thing I think that's holding Lamar back. My personal opinion, I have not verified that with Lamar, but if I'm triangulating things and I'm looking at all the different data points, knowing Lamar, meeting Lamar numerous times as a former player, having numerous conversations with him, and none of them were about his contract or about, they're more about like, he knows he's met my kids before and we talk ball and, things like that, like low key small stuff.
Yeah.
I don't get the sense that he wants to go anywhere else. He's never said it out loud. He used the trade request as a negotiation tactic right before he got paid. That's the only time it's ever come up, and there's never been a specificity around a team. So for all the Ravens fans across the pond and locally, I believe 80% chance Lamar stays a Raven, retires a Raven, and we get at least a Super Bowl out of him in the Declan Doyle, Jesse Minter era. And so, yeah, I'm excited. The future looks good. I think we have a chance at going 13-4, 12-5, maybe better, getting a number 1 seed potentially. I'm excited. I'm excited to go to Buffalo and whip that ass. I'm so sick of Bills fans and Bagels fans. Can't stand them. Can't wait to get down to work and business. It's going to be exciting, guys.
Yeah,
amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, just Bills fans. We've got a running thing with them as well over here.
They're delusional. They're delusional. Let's not give them too much airtime, but they're clowns. I can't stand the Bengals. They're the team I hate the most in the NFL, and that's hard to say, but they are. I've been in that stadium. I've experienced it firsthand. There's just a lack of class in that stadium.
Yeah.
Bills fans have more class, and they're a lot more fun, but I understand they've never won a Super Bowl, so I get it. They're upset. They're waiting to get their first And Josh Allen is nice, but he's not Lamar Jackson. And I have all the data to prove it. But that's another show for another time, gentlemen. You guys can go on my X page, Obafemi30. I got all the data. I got all the comps. I got all the comparisons, north, south, east, west, up, down, 1 year, 5 years. I have it all.
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson is the highest rated passer in the NFL for a reason in NFL history. You know, he's got a number of different things only he's accomplished and Pat Mahomes has accomplished. Him and Pat are the only two that belong in the same sentence. And Pat is up there because of what he's done on a team level, the Super Bowls and the AFC championship games. I get that. Like, that's what it's really all about. So if anybody wants to put Pat Mahomes on Mount Rushmore ahead of everybody, I get it. But for me, the most fun player in the NFL, the best guy to watch, the most entertaining, the most physically gifted is Lamar Jackson. And he just needs the hardware to back that up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Femi, thank you very much for joining us. We've loved having you on. We obviously, you're welcome to come back on at any time during the season. We would love to talk more. Richard, thank you very much. We've been Ravens Across the Pond, the most subscribed, the most listened to unofficial, official Ravens podcast across the pond in the UK. We'll see you on the next one. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Ravens Across the Pond. We'll see you next time.